Pretty exciting, isn't it? You sold the house in Michigan and you've resettled to the Gulf Coast. Goodbye to snowblowers, ice on the sidewalk, and work days that begin and end in a wintertime drive through the pitch black of morning and afternoon. You've been through a beautiful southern spring, and just like the locals, you've retreated to your air-conditioned home and automobile for the hot, humid summer. But now this. A look at the television shows a narrow cone pointing straight at you. A breathless announcer talks about storm surges and rainfall. A hurricane is coming. More people than ever live right on the coast now, and you're one of them. You've got to learn to deal with a hurricane. Oh, you know all about hurricanes, right? Remember how Katrina flooded New Orleans because the marshes had eroded south of the city? Remember the story of the partiers at the Richelieu Apartments who all drowned during Hurricane Camille in 1969. What you know can hurt you. Neither of those things is true. One is simply wrong. A failure of flood walls allowed water to come up the man-made canals and flood New Orleans. The other is a tale made up by a survivor of the storm who was seeking attention. She got it, but the story proved to be false. There's a lot of bogus information out there, so you have to learn how this really works and how to deal with a storm. My family has some experience in this. As I record this, we've just packed our daughter off to her home in New Orleans. She wanted to be home with her crew there, and I respect that. She's experienced enough to know that if she wanted to get there, she had to leave early. She's in a safe place and waiting out the storm. She knows what to do and when. A lot of folks do not. What's needed here is a little elementary education, 1450 style. In the days before school books, children learned by reciting their letters with little epigrams attached. The lesson was printed on paper and affixed to a handheld board. The paper was covered with a transparent sheet of animal horn. The term hornbook also refers to any text for teaching the basics. Here, then, is the Hurricane Hornbook. It's not all you need to know, but it will ground you in a few actual facts that will help you understand what's going on. A. All hurricanes are different. Just because somebody's great Uncle Billy told you his place didn't even flood in the storm of 46 does not mean that it won't flood now. The characteristics of every storm are different. The tide height when it makes landfall, the amount of rain that falls, and the direction of the storm surge are different every time. B. Be prepared. Not the day before, but months before. Plan what you need. Have batteries and drinking water. You don't need to rush to the store and join the frenzied mob that goes there, not because they really need anything, but because they don't know what else to do. Anyway, if you have a freezer, you should fill any empty space with frozen bottles of water. They're drinkable and a nice cold drink when the power goes out. C. Call your friends and family members and tell them where you'll be and what your plans are. Figure out how you'll let them know where you are and how you have fared in the storm. In the old days, after Hurricane Camille, WWL Radio in New Orleans had a regularly scheduled time when they would read the names of people who had reported in as being safe. All their families had to do was listen to the radio. We have cell phones and the internet now, but without cell towers and electricity, that won't help much. So have a plan on how and when to communicate. D. Driving hundreds of miles to escape the storm is usually a bad idea. Lots of people will have the same thought. Let's drive 10 hours to Nashville and stay in a nice hotel until this is all over. Just don't do it. First, the roads will be very crowded. Traffic will not move, and that's before cars start overheating and people run out of gas. The people who are fleeing inconvenience, and not real danger, keep drivers who are trying to get out of low-lying areas from being able to get away. Also, if you escape those feeder bands of death, only to be killed in an automobile wreck on a rain-slick road, well, you'll be just as dead. E. Evacuate dangerous areas. Don't play with the storm surge. If you live in an area that floods or is close to the coast, get out and do it well before the arrival of the storm. Riding out the hurricane on the beach is like combat. It sounds like a good thing only to those who have never experienced it. Get away. In your preparations, have a place planned to go. A friend or family member who lives on high ground and is only a few miles away could save your life. F. Finally, forget about being comfortable for a while. The hours and weeks after being struck by a hurricane are pretty miserable. Unless you have a whole house generator, you won't have any air conditioning, ice, cold drinks, or hot food. You also will find out what a wonderful thing a hot shower can be. As a side note, if you're tempted to put a small gasoline generator in your garage or close to your house, don't. Several people are poisoned by carbon monoxide every hurricane season because they didn't properly ventilate a generator. Besides, it's not going to make the aftermath of the storm go away. It's at least a year-long process to recover from one of these things. You're going to have to live with some discomfort. Grow up, embrace it. You'll appreciate cold, dry air like never before when the air conditioning finally comes back on. This isn't all you need to know, of course, but it will fit on your little horn book. And as you recite these things to your fellow primary hurricane students, you'll get a little credibility, to say nothing of avoiding being smacked by the schoolmaster, the hurricane himself or herself. If you want to sound like a real old hand, pick up some lingo from the mariners who've been concerned with these storms for centuries. I flipped through the pages of another kind of horn book to learn a little about this knight's modern seamanship. It was first published in 1901 as a kind of horn book for young men training to be naval officers. In an updated edition, it has a store of straightforward information about tropical cyclones, or, as they're known in our neck of the woods, hurricanes. So how does a hurricane work? Well, a hurricane is an intense low-pressure area. That means air is rising from the surface of the water. When that hot, moist air goes up, it cools off and falls back down after releasing tons of water as rain. The energy that the sun used to evaporate that water is released when it comes out of the air as rain. This chimney that sucks up wet air and spits it out as rain and wind spins around because of the motion of the spinning earth underneath it. North of the equator, the storm spins counterclockwise. The part of the storm that is spinning into the center, that is, from the east side of a northerly moving storm, is stronger than the other side. That's why, if you're just to the east of where a northerly moving storm hits land, you are probably worse off than if the storm's center had gone right over you. There are three things that cause damage. Wind by itself will blow trees onto houses and cause plenty of damage. Rain will cause flooding, of course. A slow-moving storm is very dangerous for this reason. However, the real killer is the storm surge. This is a huge hump of water that comes with the storm. As the storm hits land, this surge will mean that the level of the water can rise by many feet within just a few minutes. What makes this so dangerous and unpredictable is the simple fact that this water is funneled into bays, rivers, bayous, and creeks in a way that makes predicting how high the water will get in a given area impossible. That depends on how deep the creek or the bay or the bayou might be and how much water the storm crams into it. Like lots of things, a hurricane's danger can be managed to present the least risk possible to you. Understand how a hurricane works. Be thoughtful. Plan far ahead, and don't do things at the last minute because you're frightened. Most of all, don't be that idiot who refuses to understand how deadly these storms can be. If you think they're just a little stormy weather and just the excuse you need for a tryst with your girlfriend on the boat you have moored in a marina, you will suffer the consequences. Such a man and such a girlfriend were the only casualties of a storm that swept through here some years ago. Don't be that guy or that girl. Afterward, be patient. The recovery is a lot of tedious work. Those skills are universal. Work with your neighbors. Learn to use a chainsaw safely if you must use one at all. Enjoy that first cold drink or hot bath. These storms are a part of life on the Gulf Coast, just like snow is on the Upper Peninsula. Still, they don't come every year, and with a little practical knowledge and some good judgment, trust me, you'll do just fine. I'm Frances Coleman. I've worked for newspapers for more than 45 years, from Texas to my native Louisiana, and finally to my home near Mobile, Alabama. I've been a reporter, an editorial writer, a columnist, and an editorial page editor. I've commented on the BBC, been a guest on the Rachel Maddow Show, and had my column distributed nationwide. If you like this podcast, please follow it. It's free, and even if you don't like it, I hope you'll find it thought-provoking.